Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, dear partners, dear ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. It is with great pleasure that we are here today. My name is Dr. Rita Bisunat. I head the African Union International Center for Girls and Women's Education. Welcome to our 5th high-level dialogue on gender and equality. This year, it is organized by the African Union International Center for Girls and Women's Education, which is a specialized institution of the Department of Human Resources, Science and Technology of the African Union Commission, and in collaboration with the Global Partnership for Education, the Permanent Delegation of Norway of the African Union, UNESCO, UNICEF, and Save the Children. In line with the African Union's theme for 2021, Arts, Culture, and Heritage, levers for building the Africa we want. Our focus today in this high-level dialogue will be on leveraging arts and culture to increase girls' and women's participation in STEM education, such as science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. You might ask the question, why STEM? I think it is very important not to forget STEM. STEM today is the leeway in this world of 5G, in this world of artificial intelligence. And we are here to discuss with an amazing team of panelists. And we are delighted to have some artists with us here today. So let me start by introducing, first of all, the first speaker for our 5th high-level dialogue, who will be welcoming you all to this 5th high-level dialogue, no other than our Commissioner, Her Excellency Professor Sarah Agbo Anyang, who is the Commissioner of Human Resources, Science and Technology of the African Union Commission, who will be welcoming us to this 5th high-level dialogue. Your Excellency, Commissioner, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rita. Good morning. I'll go with what you just did. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are at this particular time. Her Excellency Margaret Kobia, Cabinet Secretary for Gender, Honorable Dr. Daj Ing Ulstein, Minister of International Development, Norway, Her Excellency, my own very sister, Ms. Amira El-Fadi, Commissioner for Social Affairs, Honorable Ministers for Science, Technology, and Innovation, Honorable Ministers of Culture, Honorable Ministers of Gender of African Union Member States, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, esteemed participants, it is my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, His Excellency Dr. Musa Faki Mahamad, to this 5th high-level dialogue organized, as Dr. Rita Bisunat rightly stated, by our specialized institution, the African Union International Center for Girls and Women's Education in Africa, AUCFA, in collaboration with the Global Partnership for Education, the Permanent Delegation of Norway to the African Union, UNESCO, UNICEF, and Save the Children. I want to seize the opportunity to acknowledge the presence of each and every one of you and to tell you that you are very much welcome and we appreciate the sacrifice of time that you have given to us. I also want to recognize and appreciate the Ministers of Education and Gender Culture from African Union member states, as well as experts from these different ministries, development partners, education experts, and civil society. Your presence sets the tone for the highest level of commitment to build the foundations of quality education in our continent. As you are aware, the African Union's theme for 2021 is arts, culture, and heritage, levers for building the Africa we want. In line with this theme, this 5th high-level dialogue will be focusing on leveraging arts and culture to increase girls and women's participation in STEM education. I might want to change STEM to STEAM where we have STEAM, where the A will stand for arts. We now see there's a linkage and an holistic framework where we consider the place of arts, even in leveraging women's and girls' participation in STEM education. Arts, culture, and heritage speaks to the social, economic fabric of societies and the world. Culture is a way of life. Heritage is our heritage, what we own, what we live, what we have, what we have affinity for. So we would like to seize the opportunity of the African Union's 2021 theme to rethink about the process of teaching and learning of science, mathematics, technology, and education through arts, culture, and heritage. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics underpin their objectives underlined in African Union Agenda 2063, as well as in the Science, Technology, Innovation Strategy for Africa, and even in the Continental Education Strategy for Africa. Agenda 2063 speaks of an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, driven by its own competent and skilled citizens able to play in the world arena. How can we play in the global arena where we have not consolidated on education, science, technology, and innovation? And how do we use the metrics of arts, culture, and heritage to boost the participation of women and girls in subjects like mathematics, technology, engineering, and science? In an increasingly interconnected and converging world, and in the African common market, STEM and arts can be beneficially be maximized through a faster flow, movement, and dissemination of African creative and positive ideas and information, as well as endogenous systems of knowledge databases towards Africa's renaissance as creative and cultural expression in the global arena. Embedding arts, culture, and heritage within education enable us to preserve, restore, and rehabilitate strong values, as well as create an unparalleled, enabling environment for the promotion of girls and women in every strata of society, in line with the aspirations of the African Union's Agenda 2063 and that of our continental strategy for Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, excellencies, as we are aware, very few women go to lead careers in STEM, and at higher education levels, women represent only 35% enrollment in STEM-related subjects, which limits the opportunities into the labor market at a time of growing demand for professionals with STEM skills in Africa and the fourth industrial revolution. It is therefore important to grasp that this situation is framed by many cultural stereotypes pre-existing to the pandemic-related repercussions. These cultural stereotypes not only limit girls' and women's access to education, but further portray STEM as a male domain. A vast majority of our teaching and learning resources do not engage or support girls' involvement in STEM, and teachers are not proactive in nurturing girls to take up STEM subjects, leading to a lower enrollment in STEM subjects. Economic and cultural barriers further restrict girls' access to technology compared to boys. At home, a boy will be given preference to use a computer or any other technology. This digital and gender divide is further compounded during this period of COVID-19, particularly with them being out of school. We know that when we are growing up, it is normal for boys to hold guns as toys, to hold cars as toys. But what do they give to the girl child? They give us what? Doll babies, toys, and things to work in the kitchen, thereby domesticating you at a very early age. The COVID-19 pandemic, as well as climate change, are thus exacerbating gender and other inequalities and disproportionately affecting women and girls in all countries. In this 5G and artificial intelligence world, there is a greater need for STEM knowledge and skills, we will be paying a steep price for excluding girls and women from participating in scientific and technological solutions that will save lives. This crisis will also be opportunities for innovation and education, nurture girls and women's participation in STEM through gender-sensitive humanities studies, moving from STEM to STEAM. Indeed, arts and humanities studies are not always recognized as vital components of 21st century learning. As we know, STEM is geared towards innovation, but the elements for innovation, such as design thinking and creativity, which come from the arts, are often missing in STEM. These competencies are pivotal in preparing our youth to be successful, reflective, and well-rounded thinkers. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, if nothing is done to address the situation, we risk losing the progress made by African states towards gender equality. I wish to invite you to reflect on a certain number of underlying factors for a moment which hinder girls and young women retention in school, and especially in STEM subjects, which are pivotal for transforming Africa's development. The future of Agenda 2063, the transformation of the Africa we need, is consolidated in education, science, technology, and innovation. In order to ensure a bright STEM future for Africa, a vision by the African Union's Agenda 2063, governments and organizations must step up and take action. Your Excellencies, it is impossible to achieve the Agenda 2063 vision of an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, whose development is driven by its own people, without increased and sustained investments in quality education, science and technology, as well as youth development and empowerment. Our institutions and our Agenda 2063 require us to invest heavily in growing a new generation of successful youth, scientists, and researchers, as well as educationists. The continental frameworks, including the Continental Education Strategy for Africa 2016-2025, the Science, Technology, Innovation Strategy for Africa 2024, and the African Plan on Youth Empowerment, and the consultations with member states, including ministers of education, science and technology and youth, as well as consultations with the youth, are very instrumental in crafting the right responses. So we need to mobilize member states to accelerate implementation of the African Union Youth Education, Science and Technology sector responses, particularly in these unprecedented times of COVID-19, and encourage the sharing of good practices for replication and scale. In that wise, we are advocating with member states to increase investment in research and development, which unfortunately remains the lowest compared to other regions. Increase access to internet and technology, and advocate with telecommunication providers to provide reduced or zero tariffs for education if we need to promote remote learning. And of course, we need to strengthen the youth engagement and youth-led accountability, as well as bridge the digital divide so that everybody should have cheap and reliable internet and provide green energy for remote learning. We must advocate for this so children can become flexible in learning and getting educated. In order to ensure a bright STEM future for Africa's vision by the African Union's Agenda 2063, governments and organizations must step up and take action. We must walk the talk. So through art pieces, turning the cultural narratives of women, taking the backseat, at least Africa's 35% of STEM girls can take a nudge. Africa can get on that train of this ever interconnected world where our girls and women can be encouraged from elementary school level to take up science-related subjects. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, arts, culture, and heritage within education must form the unparalleled enabling environment for the promotion of girls and women in every strata of society, in line with the aspirations of the African Union's Agenda 2063. As I conclude my opening remarks, allow me to share a quote by Albert Einstein with you, who was often compared to Picasso. I begin. After a certain high level of technical skill is achieved, science and art tend to coalesce in aesthetics, plasticity, and form. The greatest scientists are always artists as well. It is my conviction that this fifth high-level dialogue will help us a long way in increasing the enrollment rate and motivation of girls and young women to take up STEM careers. Allow me to thank you all for participating and making time to take part in our fifth high-level dialogue. I also want to congratulate Dr. Rita Bizanot and her AU CEFA team for ensuring the continuity of these yearly dialogues with all of you on themes which are so important to advance the social, cultural development of our continent. Thank you very much for listening. Long live Africa, viva Africa, vive l'Afrique. I tried to speak that French. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for your passion and for your words, especially how do we nurture girls' education from STEM to STEAM? And this is what the debate will be all about today. I would now like to introduce our second speaker in this opening ceremony, Mrs. Alice Albright, the CEO of the Global Partnership for Education, who will tell us about how GPE is championing arts into the STEM movement. Mrs. Albright, you have the floor.
Excellencies, dear friends and colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank the African Union and the AU Center for Girls and Women's Education for hosting this very important event. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor to be amongst such esteemed speakers and good friends to open this event. Commissioner Sarah Agbor, whom I would like to thank for our strong partnership, Minister Ulstein of Norway, who is a wonderful champion for GPE, Minister Tuisegui of Uganda, Minister Honorable Lady Howard Mabuzo of Eswatini. It is wonderful to hear from President Kenyatta and Yusuf Ndour, two strong advocates of girls' education and GPE champions. What brings us together today is the fact that women and girls are the great untapped population to advance technology and social innovation. What brings us together is our determination to combat gender-based stereotypes and social norms in education, and to ensure the rights of girls to education are fully realized. As you know, the COVID-19 pandemic triggered an unprecedented learning crisis, which hit girls the hardest. There is a real risk that millions of the most vulnerable children, especially girls, will never set foot in a classroom again. An estimated 20 million girls could drop out of school. Child marriage, teenage pregnancy, and FGM have also risen as girls spend more time away from the safe space that schools provide and are more vulnerable to physical and sexual violence and exploitation. That is why GPE mobilized our fastest and largest emergency response to help prevent a catastrophic loss of learning and waste of human potential, particularly for girls. 52% of the grants allocated by GPE specifically focus on girls to get them safely back into school and learning. For instance, in Kenya, an $11 million COVID grant supported a smooth transition back to school for girls, provided mentorship services, including for girls with special needs and disabilities, online psychosocial support services, and communication on gender-based violence prevention for teachers, parents, and students. I want to take this opportunity to thank the African Union, who partnered with GPE to ensure that gender equality and inclusion are at the center of the GPE Knowledge and Innovation Exchange, known as KICS, COVID-19 Observatory for Africa. Even before the pandemic, we were off track to deliver on the promise of a quality education for all the world's girls and boys. This is particularly true for STEM. Girls are underrepresented in STEM education and consequently in STEM careers. These are the jobs of the future that drive innovation, social well-being, inclusive growth, and a sustainable development. Clearly, we cannot continue with business as usual. As we look to build back better and equal from COVID, we must ensure that we reach the most vulnerable learners, especially girls, who cannot realize their right to education due to poverty, social and cultural norms, and discrimination. At GPE, we are committed to investing in girls and identifying the most critical systemic and social barriers that are holding them back. That is why GPE's new strategy hardwires gender throughout all of our operations, including a targeted financing window to incentivize gender priorities and achieve gender equality. That is why GPE aims to raise at least $5 billion through our financing campaign, hosted by President Kenyatta of Kenya and Prime Minister Johnson of the UK. A successful GPE replenishment will enable 46 million girls to go to school and protect 2 million girls from early marriage. That is why GPE also works to harness the strategic capabilities of our partners, such as the business community, to remove the hurdles to girls' education. GPE is working with global business leaders, including many from Africa, to get more girls learning, to close the digital gender divide, and introduce innovation, new skills, and thinking, including design thinking and creativity. All these efforts will help keep girls learning and ensure that they have the skills and the knowledge that they need to pursue careers in STEM. Gender equality in STEM education means closing the digital gender divide and enhancing connectivity and EdTech to increase access to learning for marginalized groups and remote communities during and beyond COVID-19. Unlocking the future we want begins by investing in the generation that will build this future, and this must include more girls. Investing in girls' education, including their participation in STEM education, is not just the right thing to do, it's a smart investment. And without it, the world is robbed of future doctors, teachers, scientists, design thinkers, and innovators that will secure the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Alice Albright. Thank you for telling us how important girls' education is to the continent, to the development of the continent. Let me now invite Honorable Dag Inge Ulstein, Minister of International Development of Norway, to make his opening address. Norway is one of our closest collaborators at the African Union International Center for Girls and Women's Education, and they are also one of the most outspoken advocates of girls and women's education. So he will share with us the theme of the year. Sir, you have the floor.
Your Excellency, honorable ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, wherever we come from, no matter what language we speak, we have so much in common. Of all the things binding us together, I can think of nothing more important than the goal of eradicating extreme poverty before this decisive decade is over and reaching all the other sustainable development goals. We are also bound together by our firm belief that the topic of today is one of the most effective tools of getting there, perhaps the most effective: education. Schools are where girls and boys are getting prepared for a meaningful future, to seek jobs, and perhaps even create jobs for others. The pandemic has not only brought the most serious disruption of education in history, but also made it more difficult to reach the 2030 goals. But most importantly, the virus has made it even more important that we reach them. I commend the African Union International Center for Girls and Women's Education in Africa for organizing this dialogue. Norway is honored to be your long-term partner. It is a great idea to leverage arts and culture in order to increase girls' and women's participation in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education. It is a great idea everywhere, and especially so in Africa, in view of the continent's rich heritage, distinctive culture, and blossoming arts. Arts stimulate cognitive development. Arts encourage innovative thinking and creativity. Arts engender understanding of the importance of cultural diversity, tolerance, and inclusion. It is also a way of combating gender-based stereotypes and social norms. I am deeply concerned that the school closures due to the pandemic may reverse more than 2 decades of progress in girls' education. We all know that girls are exposed to additional risks when school closed down. While school systems in most high-income countries have managed the transition to digital platforms, connectivity must be improved in low-income countries. This requires exactly the skills we speak about in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Not only do girls have the same right to education as boys, their competence is highly needed. We know this from the way Norway worked its way out of poverty. And that is why we work so closely with partners such as African Union, UNICEF, the Global Partnership for Education, Education Cannot Wait, and UNESCO to ensure that all girls can benefit from education on equal terms with boys. We strongly support the African Union's effort to implement the 10 years continental education strategy for Africa, where marginalized groups, girls and women are given special attention. Schools and universities must be safe and protect girls from sexual and physical violence, even in conflict situations. African states and the African Union have been at the forefront since the inception of the Safe School Declaration. Through our support to vocational education, we enable girls to acquire job-relevant skills and find sustainable employment in the local labor market. Through the E4D SOGA program in Eastern Africa, Norwegian support has contributed to vocational training for 66,000 people. 23,000 of them gained sustainable employment, and 30% of them were women. At a time of growing demand for professionals with technological skills, we need to find ways to improve the ability to recruit, train, and retain such a workforce in ways that are effective, sustainable, and that foster innovation. Excellencies, during the pandemic, school means hope, a safe place to be, and a bulwark against hunger, loneliness, mental problems, child marriage, domestic violence, and modern slavery. After the pandemic, it will be the way to enrich lives and eradicate extreme poverty once and for all. It may sound optimistic, but so be it. I wish you a fruitful discussion and look forward to the outcomes and your recommendations. I would like to end with some famous words from a poet, and this could be from Yuson Dor, kind of, and when a child is born, but I will actually take some words from a famous Norwegian poet that was read from a Minister of Education in Norway when he met the Minister of Education in South Africa, now 15 years ago. And they translated these words into English there at this meeting. And that is the poet Olav H. Hauge. And I will end with this. And that is just like a short greeting from snowy and really cold Norway from the Home Office today. And the poem goes like this. It's the dream. It's the dream we carry in secret, that something miraculous will happen, that it must happen, that time will open, that hearts will open, that doors will open, that the rock face will open, that springs will gush, that the dreams will open, that one morning we will glide into some harbor we didn't know was there. So thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much, Minister, for this beautiful poem. What a great way to end about talking about girls' education, about the importance of having safe teaching and learning environments. Je voudrais maintenant me tourner vers Son Excellence, Madame Ginette Amara Ali Makiezi, ministre de la Recherche scientifique et de l'Innovation de la République de Centrafricaine, et qui est aussi la première vice-présidente de notre réunion de notre réunion ministérielle de sciences, technologies et de l'éducation. Madame Amara, vous avez la parole. J'espère que vous êtes en ligne et que vous êtes connectée, Votre Excellence.
Hello.
Oui, Madame la ministre, allez.
J'ai quelques difficultés pour manipuler mon appareil. Donc, je viens de rejoindre le groupe. J'étais à une réunion, je viens de rejoindre le groupe. Excusez-moi pour ce retard, puisque j'étais dans une autre réunion et je viens de finir pour pouvoir rejoindre le groupe et j'ai eu quelques difficultés dans la manipulation de mon appareil pour joindre la conférence. Donc, j'ai pris un peu la réunion en cours de route et je n'ai pas suivi le début de la réunion et comme je viens juste à peine de prendre le train en marche, je commence d'abord par présenter mes vœux à toute l'assistance à cette conférence. Je salue également l'initiative de tenir cette réunion en vidéoconférence et j'ai particulièrement aimé la thématique qui est en rapport avec la culture, les arts, à intégrer dans l'éducation des filles. Je suis particulièrement émerveillée de voir que c'est une histoire qui touche vraiment l'Afrique, l'éducation des filles et comment faire pour pouvoir, à cette période de l'ère du numérique, comment faire pour que nous puissions atteindre les objectifs de l'agenda 63 de l'Union africaine. Pour ma part, j'aimerais partager une expérience que nous venons de vivre en République centrafricaine avec un lycée qui, depuis 1961, a fonctionné pour la formation uniquement des jeunes filles. Et cette école a formé la majorité de l'intelligentsia centrafricaine féminine. Et moi-même, je fais partie de ce lycée. C'est un lycée qui a été ouvert par une communauté religieuse et qui se trouve à Bangui. Et l'expérience que nous aimerions partager concerne les stratégies et la méthodologie utilisées par la directrice de cette école, qui a mis beaucoup de rigueur pour pouvoir former les filles en République centrafricaine. Et ces filles sont aujourd'hui devenues des hauts cadres de l'administration centrafricaine. Elle a également utilisé, elle a bravé beaucoup de traditions culturelles pour pouvoir amener vraiment un grand nombre de filles au sein de son établissement. il y a eu également, dans l'une de ces stratégies, il y a eu le système de pensionnat. Au lieu de repartir à la maison, elles sont cantonnées dans ce lycée-là pour passer leur semaine, et puis c'est seulement à la fin de la semaine qu'elles reviennent leurs parents. À un moment donné, le système de pensionnat a coûté plus cher pour les parents qui n'arrivaient plus à supporter les frais. Et elle était obligée, la directrice de cette école était obligée de ramener le système de demi-pensionnat, où les filles restent à l'école jusque dans dans la soirée et elles rentrent en fin d'après-midi. Et le système a consisté surtout à
Nous avons un problème de connexion, Votre Excellence.
former les filles dans la matinée et puis cet apprentissage, c'est un autre professeur qui vient apprendre à ces filles les matières où elles sont faites. Ah, d'accord. Moi, chez moi, j'ai tout ouvert, hein, en tout cas. Je suis désolée.
Non, non, allez-y, allez-y.
Ça va, vous me suivez? Vous me suivez?
Très bien, Votre Excellence.
Ah, d'accord. Donc, j'étais en train d'expliquer un peu la méthodologie que cette religieuse a pu utiliser pour le lycée P12, qui s'appelle comme ça, lycée P12 de Bangui. Et je disais que ce système a fonctionné grâce au système de demi-pensionnat où les filles restent à l'école depuis le matin jusqu'au soir. Les cours finissent à midi et dans l'après-midi, c'est elles qui changent de méthode d'enseignement, de méthode d'apprentissage. Et je suis prête pour que nous puissions collecter cette méthodologie pour mettre.
Excellence, vous avez encore 1 minute pour
Innover
clôturer.
ce système pour mettre à la disposition de tout le monde. Voilà un peu ce que j'ai à partager. D'emblée, je me présente et mets tous mes excuses pour le retard puisque j'ai pris un peu le train en marche et je crois que j'en ai fini. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Votre Excellence, pour votre allocution d'ouverture. I would now like to invite Her Excellency, Mrs. Margaret Kobia, Cabinet Secretary for Gender, on behalf of His Excellency, Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya, to make her keynote message. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You can hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Margaret Kobia, Minister for Public Service and Gender. I'm reading my speech from His Excellency the President, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, who is a champion of women and girl empowerment, not only in Kenya, but also in Africa. I'll just read the statement as it is, and thank you for the opportunity. Excellencies, honorable ministers, distinguished guests, panelists, and speakers, I'm delighted to join you today as we deliberate and engage on African Union theme for 2021, Year of the Art, Culture, Heritage, and how we collectively leverage on our vibrant art and thriving culture to ensure that girls and women are empowered to fully participate and to contribute to the growth of our economies and the societies. This year's theme offers an opportunity to look at how we can harness our creative industries and the talents to move forward the Agenda 2063 and the critical sectors like education, while building on the unique history and the strength and the values that make us truly Africans. For too long, our African heritage and culture has been hindrance to women and girls by denying them full enjoyment of their rights in decision-making, political and economic spheres. We now have the opportunity to bring transformative change by taking deliberate action to address the continued patriarchal and the socio-cultural factors that have determined the deep-rooted and entrenched gender norms that remain hindrance to the realization of equitable and a more gender-balanced society. We must therefore transmit the lessons and the values of our past and the present, combined with leveraging on technology and innovation to ensure that we build a modern, forward-looking, future-rooted in our identity and the values, and in which every boy and girl can reach their full potential. It is indeed clear that economic, health, and education repercussions of the COVID-19 crisis are closely linked. And as early evidence shows that the situation for our most vulnerable population is dire. Jobs and incomes have been lost, unpaid family caregiving burdens have grown, education limited and become virtual, healthcare access uneven, and the rates of violence are growing. In every instance, we know that these impacts are not felt equally across the population, but more to women. Women and girls are bearing the brunt of these forces, placing them on an even greater disadvantage. At the same time, across Africa, as with the other cases globally, women have been at the forefront of the COVID-19 response effort, particularly in health sector, where a large percentage of the frontline workers are women. Excellencies concerning girls' education, Kenya has made great strides in advancing gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. There is a greater parity in basic education, as we have witnessed a significant increase in number of girls enrolling for secondary education and tertiary education in the country in the last few years. The government of Kenya has implemented policies to level the playing field for women and girls. This includes provision of free maternity care for mothers, provision of sanitary towels for girls, making it possible for girls also to return to school when they get pregnant, and as well as embarking on a multi-agency program dedicated to accelerate effort towards elimination or zero tolerance of female genital mutilation and child marriage. Excellencies, education is one of the smartest investments a country can make, especially educating girls. Educating girls has the greatest impact. It improves the health, reduces mortality, reduces poverty and inequality, boosting earning, and even helps mitigate climate change. Yet, even though women and girls make up a half of the continent population, they are almost the most vulnerable, highlighted by millions of out of school because of COVID, and the every risk they are now going to face. African culture has been used to perpetuate stereotype of women and to circumvent, to support violence against women and girls, exploiting them, discrimination, experience, child marriages, and other systematic bottlenecks and barriers to their education. We must put a halt to such distortions and instead consciously harness our heritage and culture to build a gender equal society that affirms the right of men and women, boys and girls, and exemplifies our cultural values of togetherness, collaboration, and inclusiveness. With the support from the Global Partnership for Education, which was mentioned earlier, the government of Kenya is systematically removing the barriers to quality education, from raising the teaching standard to providing great access to textbook and clean, safe sanitation. Emphasis is placed on reaching the most marginalized, including girls and refugee children, to ensure education is accessible to all. Significant strides have been made in gender equality, with the gross enrollment for girls and boys almost equal. And in addition, efforts focused on detention and transition. Under our US dollars 11 million COVID grant from Global Partnership for Education includes a focus on the protection and safety of all learners, especially girls, during the school closures. Excellencies, investing in girls and sustaining progress means we must address the socioeconomic and educational barriers that prevent girls from accessing the education as a right. To that end, we must leverage on our cultural infrastructure, including engaging tradition and religious leaders as gatekeepers of cultural practices that hold girls back. Our continued engagement with the men and the boys as agents for change will also contribute immensely towards the realization of a much better world that respects and recognizes the value and the worth of women and girls. Excellencies, regarding education in science, technology, engineering, maths, and arts, it matters. Kenya has collaborated with partners to host an annual scientific camp of excellence for mentoring girls in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in this July. And since 2014, STEM has been given an emphasis as a strategy of empowering girls. Empowering girls in the STEM field, and they learn how scientific subjects are linked with STEM to advance their careers. Over 970 girls from across Kenya have participated in this variable program and have been empowered to consider rewarding careers in STEM, and by so doing, they have had a multiplier effect of how we reach others in secondary school. We have also worked with partners like the Global Partnership for Education, AU, CFA, and the FAWE on gender-responsive education sector planning. We have also worked with partners to train STEM teachers in gender-responsive teaching, and our also national ministries and institutions have established partnerships to enhance women participation in STEM. Going forward, we need to better prepare girls for the workplace so that they are able to drive economic growth. For example, partners like Microsoft, among others, in our vibrant technology sector have contributed to equipping women and girls with digital skills, which have become even more critical given the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on employment. Regarding domestic financing as a strategy, progress has been made, Your Excellencies, because it does not happen in a vacuum. As leaders, we must invest in girls' education, give it a top priority, including by protecting and improving education budget than it is. Domestic finance is the most significant substance and the greatest volume of financing for education for sustainable growth. Yet, we know the economic impact of pandemic is massive, putting strain on the national economies at the budget and the putting a risk on achieving sustainable goal number 5 and the agenda 2063. That is why Kenya is co-hosting with the UK and the GPE financing conference this year in July to keep education financing at the top of the world's priority list. We need to ensure that girls return to school and have the skills and the tools and the right environment they need to pursue their desired careers. In conclusion, Your Excellencies, now more than ever, we know more need to be done to protect education financing, sharpen our focus on equity in spending, and increasing efficiency. This includes putting education in a stimulus package and further relieving, postponing, and restructuring debt for our countries. This must also be part of the solution so that we have the physical space and support education strategies. The effect of COVID-19 pandemic have also made it more urgent to consider working with our partners to implement innovative financing methods that incentivize education providers to deliver quality education mechanism that fits within the context for every African state. This is not the time to fall back on financing commitments because we make many commitments, but if they are not supported with the budget and financing, then we may not realize that. We mean to be sure education spending keeps girls learning and reaches the most marginalized children, schools, regions, and communities. Excellencies, I call on you as fellow AU heads of states, as ministers, to access the trade-off and protect the most vulnerable in our nations. If we do not ensure that education and the equitable access to girls continue to be prioritized, we risk losing our own generation. Finally, Excellencies, this is our chance to transform our education system for the present and the future, because we have seen the gaps which have been highlighted by COVID-19 pandemic. To draw on African culture and heritage to reinvent what works and how we can deliver better. Let's make sure we create a better future for all the children, particularly girls, in the spirit of collective agenda or leaving no one behind. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and thank you to the Republic of Kenya and the President Kenyatta for being such a strong advocate for girls' and women's education and for emphasizing the need to leave no one behind, especially our girls. Thank you very much again, Your Excellency, for taking the time. I would now like to invite Honorable Yusundo. I don't even have to introduce him. He is such a very well-known artist, former Minister of Culture of Senegal, and a GPE champion. So Honorable Yusundo will now be giving us the keynote address on this so important theme of arts and STEM. Honorable Yusundo.
Bonjour. Le monde est en train de vivre des moments très durs à cause de la pandémie. La pandémie a fait des ravages dans le système éducatif africain. Certes, il y a des progrès dans le continent, mais nous devons transformer cette crise en opportunité pour investir davantage et pour cela, je salue les efforts du GPE. À la veille du 34e sommet de l'Union africaine, nous avons besoin de leadership courageux pour protéger et financer l'éducation, surtout pour l'éducation des femmes et des jeunes filles dans les sciences et technologies. Une solidarité mondiale est nécessaire si nous voulons réussir à reconstruire un meilleur avenir pour nos jeunes filles. C'est pourquoi je lève la main pour le GPE et pour le financement de l'éducation. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup à Monsieur Youssoundo pour son allocution sur l'importance de l'éducation. I would now like to invite a young girl. I think it is so important for us to listen to our youth, to our young girls. We know that 60% of our youth in the continent are under the age of 30. So it is very important for us to listen to Miss Adana Nwagagbo from Nigeria. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name properly, who is an advocate for the AUCFR and who will talk to us and tell us the importance of education, the importance of science and technology, and how arts is all integrated together. Miss Adana, you have the floor. And welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, honorable ministers and commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow young people in Africa and beyond. I am Adana Nwagagbo from Nigeria, an 11-year-old girl with many dreams, 2 of which are to become a pediatrician and a singer in the future. I should be dreaming bigger, right? Perhaps. But for now, I am happy to have dreams that I can pursue and work towards achieving. I am fortunate that I can dream and receive the support that I need to actualize my dreams. Sadly, many girls in Africa are not so fortunate. Many girls my age dare not dream of becoming anything of great value because they are considered inferior, not worth the investment, and will ultimately be married off and relegated to the kitchen. For those like me who are fortunate to receive education, we still struggle to stand out in school. We are either covertly or overtly discouraged from studying science, technology, engineering, and mathematics courses because we are girls. We are advised to focus on the simpler subjects. Leave the heavyweight subjects to the boys, they say. As has rightly been alluded to, we are held back by biases, social norms, and expectations. A report by UNESCO showed that at higher education level, only 35% of enrolled students in STEM-related subjects were women. And to think that STEM careers are considered the jobs of the future. The usual progression is that girls become women. An uneducated girl becomes an uneducated woman, while an educated girl becomes an educated woman. Educated girls are more likely to make sound and informed decisions because they are empowered with knowledge and skills. The same cannot be said of a girl or woman who received little or no education. I enjoy singing because singing is a means of expression for me. It is an art. I believe that arts and culture can enhance understanding, catalyze critical thinking, and improve learning. They can bridge the gender divide and help people appreciate each other and their diversity. I call on everyone, governments, teachers, parents, men, women, boys, and girls to make the education of the girl child a priority. Poverty is expensive. Grasa Machel, a well-known advocate for women's and children's rights, said, "If you want to break the cycle of poverty, educate a girl." It has been demonstrated, and I have a personal experience, that when you improve the education of girls, there will be significant improvement in the lives of many families and communities. I have many dreams, but I do not want to dream alone. I want every girl to dream along with me. I desire that girls across Africa will have bigger dreams than I have. I call on Africa and the world to make the education of the girl child a priority. Educate us to the highest extent possible. Generations depend on us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adana. And thank you for telling us about your dreams. Your dreams reflect that of all our girls in the continent. And we have to listen to your dreams. And thank you so much for being here with us today. We are really appreciative of this. Thank you again, Adana. So we will now go into a group photo. So I would suggest that before we all turn on our cameras, I think it is very important, and we have seen here that strong partnerships are needed to advance girls' education, especially in STEM. And this cannot be done without investing in education. That is, having more domestic financing and ODA. And this is why GPE, who is one of our partners here, has launched a financing campaign with partners, including the African Union, to call on world leaders to keep education financing a top priority. And here's a short video on this. Can we have the video, please?
When she raised her hand, it was to reach the highest point. When she raised her hand, it was to touch the stars. To find a cure. To give us a reason to dream. When he raised his hand, it was to stand up for his rights. To start over. To learn against all odds. When she raises her hand, it's to answer yes, to seize her future. Every change starts with a powerful act. Raise your hand. Fund education.
Thank you. Can we all turn on our cameras? All panelists, let us all turn on our cameras and raise our hands, but also to make sure that education is a top priority, but also at this time, at this post-COVID time, to make sure that all girls go back to school in line with AU-CFR's campaign, Africa Educator. So let us all raise our hands and take this group picture to make sure that we have more girls in STEM, all girls go back to school, and we increase access to digital connectivity. I think Anuziva is taking the picture. You have everyone? Yes, is this all right, Anuziva? You have
a few videos that are still not
okay. Can you
appear.
have all the videos, please? And a smile.
Commissioner Mira, we are all wearing green.
Is it all right, Liam and Paul? Is it fine? You can keep telling me. Not yet. Okay.
1 minute, Dr. Rita, the ministers of Burkina Faso, Madame le ministre, vous pouvez lever votre main.
Madame le ministre.
Comme je me vois
la vidéo ne marche pas ici, c'est pour ça que je l'ai fait la même.
Ah, ok. Je vais voir votre vidéo. Normalement, ça devrait donner.
C'est
Voilà.
bon.
Okay,
Vous pouvez lever la main.
now
Merci.
and we can take the picture. Très bien. Oui à l'éducation des filles, oui que l'éducation des filles continue.
Merci.
Thank you very much. As we are now in a session where we are talking about arts, I think it is important again that we listen to a young girl. The others, can you put your microphones off, Madame la Ministre? Si vous pouvez éteindre le microphone, s'il vous plaît. Merci. We will now listen. We will have an artistic performance by one of our young girls from Uganda, Afri, who is also an AU champion and who will be singing to us about the importance of girls. And this is also the theme song for the campaign of Africa Educator campaign, which AUCFR has been leading now since last year. Afri, you have the floor.
Hi, my name is Afri from Uganda. I am truly honored to be part of this dialogue with you because I exist to make life better for the African girl, just like you. And education is one of the ways to empower her. So this is my song, Let Her Know. I hope you enjoy it. They say shut your mouth about the things going on in your area, girl. They say you're too dumb to vent to care. They say your heel's too high, your skills too low for you to know. Well, that's just what they say. But who is this African girl? Who is this Ugandan girl? Tell me, who is this African girl? Hey, hey, do we know, do we know, do we know, oh, do we know that it's too much for her to bear? Or when we say that she's too dumb, just play her hair. See, I know that she's much more than what she wears. This I know, oh I know, oh yes I know, oh. Can't you see I am this African? Oh yes I am this Ugandan girl. Oh now I am this African girl. Yeah, now you know, now you know, now you know. So now you know. Teach me my 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, yeah, and give me that ABC. Yeah, oh how I long to be much more than anything, way more than everything. Won't you just let me be? Okay, so now this is the simple part. Will you sing along with me? Sing, I am this African girl. Let me hear. I am this Ugandan girl. Oh yes, I am this African girl. Oh yeah, let me know, let me know, let me know. Oh, let me know, and empower this African girl. Yes, empower this Ugandan girl. Oh, empower this African girl. Yeah, till she knows, till she knows, till she knows. Oh, let her know, let her know. This song is dedicated to every single Ugandan girl out there, every single African girl out there. This is for you. Thank you so much for listening. Hey, my name is Afri, and it's such an honor. Steady.
Thank you very much, Afri. We are all African girls. We are also now all Ugandan girls. Thank you very much for this theme song, which is our now theme song for AUCFR. Thank you again. We now move on to the panel discussion, which is on strategies for combating gender-based stereotypes and social norms in education through arts, culture, and heritage. We are very pleased to have here with us so many ministers. We have with us a great panel of 5 ministers who will share with us their strategies, their experience in combating gender-based stereotypes and social norms in education. So let me now turn towards Honorable Mabuza Lady, Minister of Education and Training of Eswatini. Your Excellency, what is the current situation of girls and women studying and working in the field of STEM in your country? And knowing and given the low number of young women or girls studying in STEM, do you think that African countries would benefit from reviewing their curricula by ensuring that arts is integrated in STEM? And if you have any initiatives in STEM plus arts, that is STEAM, can you please share it with us? Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Dr. Rita, apparently, Minister has challenge in joining. Maybe if you can continue with the next one, so we try to sort it out from our side.
All right, okay. So I will turn towards Namibia. Honorable Faustina Calais, who is again, Honorable Faustina Calais, Deputy Minister of Education, Arts and Culture from Namibia. The same question: what is the current situation of girls and women studying in STEM? And what can you do to review to make sure that art is integrated in STEM? Honorable Faustina, you have the floor.
Honorable Faustina, please unmute your microphone.
Okay, can you come with the question again?
Yes, I will come with the question again, Your Excellency. What is the current situation of girls and women studying in the field of STEM in Namibia? And knowing that we have very few girls and women studying in STEM, do you think that we need to review the curricula to make sure that we have more girls in STEM by ensuring that maybe arts help to have more girls and women in STEM and having this transition from STEM to STEAM?
Thank you very much. I've been listening to the presentation and speeches. Namibia is not exceptional. We really realized that from the start, you have more girls in primary and secondary school, but as you are moving further, then you don't see more girls moving in especially the STEM. We realize also that maybe in our curriculum, we have to introduce some of this, as you mentioned, like arts from early beginning. And I want to encourage all our teachers, especially the female teachers and all the educationals who are female, really to come up with inspired and encouraging activities to enable these girls to have interest in the STEM. What I also observe is that if we bring in the arts, as it is explained, more girls will come on board. And we really need also at very stage already to introduce careers which lead to STEM careers. Because if they don't involve themselves in STEM at the early stages, by the time they will go in careers like engineers, it is too late now. Therefore, I agreed that arts may be not only arts, but culture and heritage. Maybe we have to bring them in to encourage our girls and women to take up step, which will lead to STEM and no more STEM. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you very much, Honorable Faustina. Je vais me tourner maintenant vers Son Excellence, Madame Élise Ilbodo Thiombiano, ministre des Arts et de la Culture et Tourisme du Burkina Faso. Votre Excellence, selon vous, est-ce que l'art et la culture constituent des matières qui pourraient être intégrées dans le cadre de l'apprentissage afin de faciliter la compréhension des mathématiques et des sciences, en général pour les apprenants et plus particulièrement pour les filles? Son Excellence, Madame Élise.
Bonjour à tous. Oui, merci. Je voudrais tout d'abord remercier les organisateurs, les partenaires, les collègues et tous les participants et bien sûr tous ceux qui mettent du sien pour l'éducation des enfants, l'éducation surtout des jeunes filles. Pour ma part, je dirais déjà qu'au Burkina Faso, les femmes comptent environ 51,70% de la population, ce qui montre justement qu'avec cette jeunesse de la population, qu'il y a beaucoup plus de filles que de garçons. Mais lorsqu'on regarde un peu au niveau des ménages allant donc de 16 ans à 35 ans, il y a au moins 72% de femmes qui ne sont ni lettrées, ni instruites, ni alphabétisées. Donc, cela pose un gros problème. Et je crois qu'il est important qu'on retourne en tout cas aux sources pour trouver les solutions pour cet usage, donc pour cette éducation. Alors, en ce qui concerne l'éducation, éléments culturels et éléments de l'art, pour ce qui est des éléments culturels que l'on pourrait en tout cas prendre en compte dans l'éducation des enfants et surtout des filles, je voudrais noter tout d'abord la langue, parce que la langue, c'est la première référence d'une culture. Et si l'éducation est faite dans la langue des enfants, ils sont plus aptes à prendre ça, à intégrer que lorsque c'est fait dans une autre langue. Peu importe, on peut quand même utiliser une autre langue comme une seconde langue au lieu que cette langue soit plutôt la première et la langue locale, la langue maternelle devienne secondaire, ce qui pose donc beaucoup de problèmes. Alors, au niveau des éléments de culture, je voudrais qu'on puisse prendre en compte les contes, parce que les contes sont mathématiques par essence, parce qu'il y a beaucoup de contes qui relaient pas mal d'apprentissage au niveau donc mathématique. Je voudrais également que la musique puisse être introduite et je viendrai à ce niveau rejoindre celle qui m'a précédée tout à l'heure, c'est-à-dire Madame Faustina, qui disait qu'il fallait commencer dès le début. Et cela est à intégrer donc au primaire, sinon même à l'avant-primaire, c'est-à-dire donc au niveau de la maternelle. Il y a les jeux. Au niveau des jeux, les enfants peuvent beaucoup apprendre à travers les jeux. Et je voudrais rejoindre un peu le pédagogue Alain qui dit qu'il faut faire jouer les enfants et leur donner donc l'impression de s'amuser alors qu'en réalité, ils apprennent. Et je pense que par les jeux, on peut intégrer, on peut facilement faire passer donc l'apprentissage des mathématiques et surtout donc au niveau des filles. Les chants, les devinettes et les proverbes, tout ça, c'est par essence mathématique et on peut trouver donc pas mal d'éléments que l'on peut puiser, que l'on peut utiliser pour l'enseignement des enfants, notamment les enfants, notamment les jeunes. Et il faut dire également qu'au niveau de certaines populations, si je prends la population de l'Est que je connais bien parce que j'en suis originaire, vous avez ce que l'on appelle la géomancie, c'est-à-dire donc les prédictions par le sable. Et je crois que cette technique, cette technologie, disons, c'est un fondement culturel qui peut, au-delà même des mathématiques, faire appel à la physique. Et je crois qu'il est possible, parce qu'autrefois les gens s'asseyaient, c'est en groupe d'ailleurs qu'on jouait au sable, on prédisait, on arrêtait certaines actions, bien sûr, souvent dites surnaturelles, mais c'est quand même des fondements dans lesquels les populations se retrouvent et c'est plus facile donc d'intégrer parce que ça appelle des notions de mathématiques. Parce que lorsque vous devez faire appel aux as, quelles sont les périodes favorables, quelles sont les périodes non favorables, etc. Il y a quand même un peu d'astronomie là-dedans, un peu de physique, et qui font que les populations se retrouvent dans cette zone-là. Et c'est plus facile donc de faire passer les messages. Et je dirais donc qu'au niveau de la culture, il y a beaucoup d'éléments, mais également au niveau des arts, on peut trouver pas mal d'éléments. Vous avez le moulage. Lorsqu'on parle de moulage, on parle de poterie. Pour ce qui est des femmes, on intègre ça au primaire et que ce soit une option, par exemple, comment dirais-je, une matière facultative. On peut prendre, par exemple, la poterie. Au niveau de la poterie, il y a les mathématiques, il y a des calculs. Vous ne pouvez pas, si vous voulez faire une poterie, faire peut-être les bords plus épais que le ventre, si ça peut s'appeler ainsi. Ou bien les tenons beaucoup plus larges et plus épaisses que le récipient lui-même. Donc, il y a quand même des notions de calcul dedans, de mathématiques, je dirais, d'équilibre qu'il faut avoir à ce niveau-là. Et cela permet donc de faciliter l'apprentissage des jeunes au niveau donc des mathématiques. Je dirais également que la sculpture, la vannerie et le tissage, tout cela peut être mis au niveau, en tout cas, être intégré au niveau même du bas âge, que les enfants les apprennent comme s'ils s'amusaient. Lorsque j'étais petite, je partais au village, je voyais les femmes, les filles, disons, tresser des bracelets avec des motifs qui est vraiment très difficile à reproduire. C'est-à-dire, si vous n'avez pas de notion, si on prend une fille peut-être de la ville qu'on lui dit, moi je venais de la ville, si on me dit de tresser ce bracelet, je ne pourrais pas. Ça veut dire donc que nous avons une intelligence locale, culturelle, qui peut nous permettre d'intégrer les mathématiques et bien sûr au niveau de la fille, qui est la garante même de la culture, qui a toujours été la garante de notre culture, de pouvoir s'améliorer en mathématiques. C'est vrai, ce sont des stéréotypes qui sont là, qui font penser que la fille ne peut pas exceller en mathématiques, etc. Mais je voudrais qu'on fasse appeler à ce niveau-là des modèles. Et je prendrai comme cette jeune fille qui est là, Adana Ouagago, excusez-moi si j'écorche un peu votre nom, je dirais que avec des modèles, nous avons des modèles de filles qui ont réussi en mathématiques, des femmes qui ont réussi en philo, qui ont réussi en physique, qui ont réussi dans tout type de sciences. On peut les prendre comme modèles et les faire souvent donner des cours au niveau, ou juste un passage au niveau primaire pour que les enfants puissent s'en inspirer, pour que les enfants puissent les prendre comme modèles. Et donc, je dirais qu'au niveau des arts, tout ce que j'ai cité comme moulage, poterie, sculpture, vannerie, etc., tout peut être utilisé parce qu'il y a on dirait, un matériau fondement mathématique, rythmique, ce qui est par exemple de la musique, qui peuvent donner des notions aux enfants et leur permettre d'être boostés sur le plan de l'éducation. Je ne voudrais pas donc monopoliser la parole, mais je voudrais dire qu'en tout cas, nous avons des éléments de culture, nous avons également des éléments de l'art qui peuvent intéresser les enfants dès le bas âge et qui peuvent également leur apporter beaucoup de choses pour leur apprentissage, mais également pour leur éducation. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la ministre. Je vais me tourner maintenant vers les Comores. Son Excellence, Monsieur Mohamed Moussa, ministre de l'Éducation nationale et de la recherche scientifique des Comores, pour nous dire quelle est la situation actuelle des filles et des femmes qui travaillent dans le domaine des sciences, technologies, ingénierie et mathématiques aux Comores, et qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire pour s'assurer qu'il y a plus de filles qui s'investissent, qui aillent dans ces domaines, donc de tout ce qui est STEAM, ce qu'on appelle STEAM. Et quelles sont les initiatives que vous menez chez vous pour faire de sorte qu'il y ait plus de filles ou de femmes en STEAM, et aussi en essayant d'intégrer toute cette dimension des arts dans l'enseignement chez vous? Votre Excellence, Monsieur Moussa, vous avez la parole. Monsieur Moussa, Monsieur le ministre, est-ce que vous êtes là? Ah, les Comores, ils ne sont pas là, on ne voit pas les Comores. Alors, je vais me tourner vers le ministre du Niger. Est-ce que Son Excellence, Monsieur Assoumana Malam Issa, est là, ministre de la culture, de la renaissance culturelle des arts au Niger? Monsieur le ministre, est-ce que vous êtes là? A-t-on un problème de connexion? D'accord. Alors donc, il me semble que je vois dans l'audience. Alors donc, je pense qu'on a des problèmes de connexion. Donc, si jamais les ministres arrivent à se connecter en route, on va leur donner la parole. Mais nous avons eu donc la ministre du Burkina Faso. Nous avons aussi eu la ministre de la Namibie. Je ne sais pas s'il y a d'autres ministres qui sont dans l'audience et qui aimeraient prendre la parole. Si ce n'est pas le cas, alors donc je vais demander à nos discussants, à nos répondants, de nous dire de qu'est-ce qu'ils pensent de ce qui ont été dit par les ministres, surtout le fait d'intégrer tout ce qui est conte, musique, jeu, c'est-à-dire des éléments des arts et de la culture dans tout ce qui est sciences, technologie, ingénierie, mathématiques, et de commencer depuis la petite enfance. Madame Doris Mpoukou est donc la directrice et la représentante de l'Union africaine de Save the Children, va commencer. Vous avez la parole, Madame Doris.
Oui, merci beaucoup, Madame la modératrice. Honorable ministre, Excellences, Mesdames les commissaires, je vais m'exprimer dans les deux langues selon les notes que j'ai prises par rapport aux interventions faites. It's really a pleasure to join this discussion, and thank you for organizing it, all the leadership at CFA. There are two points that I would like to raise in this discussion. It's really is unfortunate that we have not had the opportunity to listen to more experiences, but I think what we've already heard from the Minister of Burkina Faso and the Minister from Namibia is quite rich and puts a lot of food for thought. So I actually want to bring us back to what the young girl, the 11-year-old Adana, said to us. And it feels that between her dreams as a young girl, as an African girl, and what member states have to offer to realize her dream, there seems to be a dissonance. A dissonance because it seems that the investment in girls is not to ensure a better future for girls and ensure a stronger education for girls is not being realized. and I'm sorry, as a discussant, I will be a little bit provocative in what I will say. And what I will say is actually from my personal perspective rather than the organization that I work for. So the first, I think it's great that member states, governments are investing in girls, but it's important that we move beyond the lip service. We need to ask ourselves, especially as governments, how much are we investing? What is the budget allocated to girls' education and to their interest and increasing the number of girls following STEAM? We really need to ask ourselves, are we doing enough? We really need to ask ourselves whether we're doing enough. And sometimes the measure of what is we doing is through budgeting. Are we budgeting enough for STEAM and for to make sure that girls also are interested in STEAM? That's the first point, really. And I think we need to come back to that and answer the questions. Because what I've heard so far is what we could do, but not necessarily what we are doing as member states. So the dissonance needs to be addressed in terms of resources, financial and human resources, so dedicated to girls' education, but also to investing, to increasing the number of girls interested in STEAM. The second point that I wanted to make is the gender. We still have, of course, maybe I should go back to what the minister from Burkina Faso talked about. Yes, our culture is very rich. The songs, the theater, the, what do you call it now? I'm blanking, les devinettes. However, at the same time, some of those that cultural heritage is biased towards girls. Some songs do not promote girls' education. Maybe we should have more songs promoting girls' education. Our culture sometimes is biased towards boy. And that is reflected in the textbooks, unfortunately, even today, 2021. So if we are really serious as civil society, as community, as parents, as teachers, we need to offer more for our girls. What we offer need to be to the level of their dreams, and that's not happening yet. We still have in our constitutions, in our legislations, provisions that impeach girls. Can I continue?
Yes, Doris, people would like to see you live. Can you just put your camera? I'm sorry to interrupt.
My camera is on, but it's been blocked from the technical perspective, in fact. I think the technicians have blocked it still.
It's fine, we can see you now, we just saw you.
Oh, okay, great. So yes, I was saying that our culture is rich, but to some extent, in many ways, the culture does not promote girls, not necessarily girls' education or women's education. If you have a legislation that promotes child marriage at below the age of 18, can we say that that government is really in favor of girls' education? That's really the question. So we really need to review our legislation and make sure that it's in par with the girls and the dreams of our girls. It's important to remove all those gender stereotypical stereotypes in textbooks, in the way we engage and communicate with girls in our communities, in the classrooms. It's important. I would like to end on one point, perhaps on which I agree with the two ministers who spoke. We need to start early to ensure that girls, there's no discrepancy, there's no inequality in terms of representation between boys and girls in STEAMs. We heard the statistics from Commissioner Adbor. We heard that there is a discrepancy. Even Adana also reminded her that there is a discrepancy. But what measures our government or as parents we taking in our communities and in classroom and government to make sure that girls are more interested in STEAM? I think we really need to turn to early childhood education, preschools. How are preschools managed? Are they gender neutral to ensure that a girl who goes to a preschool can play, or a boy can play with a doll and a girl can play with trucks? Are we ready for that? Because that's where it starts. The gender inequalities are so ingrained in us that it will take a long time to change that. And so if we start early enough, maybe there will be hope. If we invest enough in what can have a transformative impact on our girls, but also boys, we need to educate boys as well to understand what the gender differences are and that girls are not inferior to them. That education needs to happen. Human rights, education as a human right is for girls and boys, and equal access to resources for girls to thrive in education, including STEAM, is something that we really need to reflect on. We are in 2021. It's time. I have a grandniece now. We were listening to a lullaby, and there was a lullaby and the illustration, the boy who was ahead of the girl. 2021. But that needs to change if we really want to change for our girls. So I'll stop there for now. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Doris. You are so right. I mean, the questions that you're posing are key questions. In how ready are we, and how should we be ready? And these are questions that all of us need to think about. So let me turn towards Dr. Edward Adai, UNICEF representative to the AU, to tell us a little bit more about his thoughts about what he has heard today and what should change and how can we change it. Dr. Eddie, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Rita, and Happy New Year to everybody. I hope it's not too late to say Happy New Year, and congratulations for putting on, for putting together this important conversation around girls, arts, culture, and heritage. I'd like to start with some of the foundational issues that the speakers have articulated around this particular conversation and this important dialogue, and pose ourselves a couple of questions, some of which I'll try to answer and some of which I'll leave as issues for us to reflect on and for our ministers to come back on. And I'll draw heavily on the conversations that have taken place in the last hour or so. The key foundational issues are what came out fairly clearly in the song. What is the African girl that we want? The African girl. Who is this African girl? And the substantive gap between what we have today and what we want. I would say that the foundational issue is really about recognizing that it is impossible for Africa to develop without investing in girls. More importantly, the continent can leverage its development if it invests in girls. It's the right thing to do, and it's the smart thing to do. And you've heard a number of quotations, and I'll add one from a very known educationist, Kwejiagre, which says that you educate a man, you educate an individual, you educate a woman, you educate a community and a nation. So for me, that's the foundational issue. And I think, Doris, you are right. There's a huge gap between this intent and what is happening today. And you heard a number of our ministers and the remarks that we heard, that a lot of our girls are not in school, some have dropped out, and some cannot even go to school. So that's the first foundational issue, keeping a girl in school, making the school safe for the girl, but more importantly, beginning to deal with some of the gender stereotypes surrounding girls in education. So that's number one. Number two is culture. I'm sure that a lot of people have more to say about culture, but a key foundational issue is that culture is the totality of our way of life. Culture defines the standards of our living, of our lives, and our culture defines the norms. So the social norms that we see today reflect our culture. So implicitly, can we say that it's the culture of an African to keep its girls out of school? The evidence continues to suggest that we need to change this way of life. We are all excited about the progress, but the evidence we have is that whilst at primary level we are seeing gender equalities in attendance, you heard it very clearly from one of our ministers. As the children progress in education, the girls tend to drop out of education. So we see substantive gender inequalities as we get to secondary and tertiary levels. We see substantive gender inequalities as we get into STEAM. Is that the culture of Africa? We are excited about this year's theme of the year, and we hope that we will leverage this theme to really transform this culture. The second issue is heritage. And you heard Professor Agbo define heritage and spoke about heritage. Heritage is our inheritance. This is what we are inheriting. In Africa today, when you apply the lens of education to heritage, we are leaving a lot of our girls behind. Is that the heritage we want to sustain? We are excited by the opportunity of changing this heritage. And the fourth foundational issue is arts. Arts manifests in songs, in crafts, in paintings, in plays. Arts are symbols and signals. And in the speeches, you heard how our arts continue to reinforce the gender stereotypes that we have on our continent. We have a year to begin to transform that, to begin to set the right signals on gender equality through our arts, through our songs, through our plays, through our folklores. For me, these are the foundational issues for our conversation. And I thought I should bring them up because they underpin the mental models that all of us have. And indeed, it's through these mental models and the conventions that we have at the community level that perpetuates the inequalities that have come out or that we are seeing today. And we have a unique opportunity in our lifetime to begin to sow the foundations for change. And the African Union's theme of the year definitely provides us with, with that opportunity. And the work you are doing in CFA is instrumental in beginning to transform education in a form that addresses these gender inequalities and stereotypes that we see on our continent. So that takes me on to the 3 questions that are on my mind, and I hope I'll provide some thoughts on those questions, but also I hope the ministers can come back on those questions. The first is, how do we transform education to make it easy for our children, our girls, to stay in school? And a number of ideas have come up. The first is the whole issue of connectivity, the whole issue of making devices affordable, and the whole issue of making data affordable is a transformative agenda that will dissolve the barriers in education, both barriers in time, so you can learn at any time, and barriers in space, so you don't need to be in a classroom to learn. It's critical for transforming Africa's education system. The second idea that has come out from this conversation is a financing agenda. We need to invest in education with priority to our children. But these cannot happen within the current mental models. So I'll go back to a conversation that Her Excellency, Professor Sarah Agbo convened a couple of days ago. And it's about, how do we reimagine education? We need to reimagine education for our girls. If we don't reimagine it, it will not happen. So my first challenge to CFA is working within the HRST team to help us reimagine this education, to change our mental models, and to help us make it a reality, at least sow the seeds of change. So the first question that is on my mind is transforming education. The second is, how do we harness the rich culture, the rich heritage, and the arts on our continent to transform education? Because what we are seeing today is a consequence of our culture. And I'm calling on Her Excellency Amira to help us integrate education, the arts in education, to help us use the symbols and signs that are required to create gender equity and to take away the gender stereotypes that exist instead. Let's use this year, under your leadership, to communicate very clearly that a girl is equal to a boy and a girl can do much, a lot more than boys, because of their reproductive potential. So how do we harness is the second question. And I would like the ministers to come in if they are enthused about it. And lastly, how do we integrate culture, heritage, and arts into our education system? And I think a number of ideas have come up, and I'd like to reinforce a couple of them as I bring my remarks to a close. The first is education in mother tongue. We need to push this agenda. There's an overwhelming evidence that if we educate in mother tongue, we are able to push the agenda of education more substantively. Children are able to learn better. The second is to start early. Early childhood education has come up. We need to use African signs, symbols, utensils to teach our children. Let's teach our children within the context of African culture. The African child must learn in an African context, starting early. So that's the second issue, early childhood development, building onto primary education. The third is to look into our curriculum to ensure that our educational competencies are based on African stories. Our African heroes and heroines, our heritage. There's a lot to teach about the founders of our nation and of our continent. Where is it being taught? Our education competencies must be based on this. The fourth is to make it easy for our children to learn. In other words, we need to help the children play and learn. Learning by rote will not work. And last but not the least, in this journey, we have to continue speaking to our young people. We have to engage the young people of our continent as we pursue an agenda of transforming education to make it easy for our young people, for our girls to learn. So these are some of the thoughts that I'd like to put on the table, and I'd like to thank CFA for bringing our young people into this conversation and for them communicating that they have a dream and challenging us to help this dream, make this dream a reality, not just for them, but for all the other girls, the vulnerable girls. So I'll stop here and hand over to you, Rita.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eddie. Our time is not on our side, but what I will do is that I will take several questions and turn back to the ministers. We have got a lot of questions coming in. I just want maybe to read some of the questions that we have. And maybe, I think the first question that Eddie asked is, what is the African girl that we want? What type of citizen do we want? Of course, we're talking about the girl, the woman, but it's also boys. We should not forget about the boys. What type of learner do we want in this 21st century? How do we make girls more interested in STEAM, that is the inclusion of arts in STEM? What is the role of the private-public partnerships in contributing towards this agenda? What is the role not only of private-public partnerships, but the role of civil society, the role of governments to promote this? What is in our school curricula? How are we implementing education, culture, and tradition of our different countries, of our different regions, of our continent? So maybe I will turn, and because I think this will be the last round of the ministers, and what will you recommend as strategies to successfully demystify this traditional African culture? Because it is true, sometimes we forget about our traditional culture. So I think it is very important to demystify our African culture and ensure that it is mainstreamed in education. So I will turn maybe towards Honorable Mrs. Lila Dukan, if she's here, who is the Vice President of the Republic of Mauritius and the Minister of Education and Scientific Research. Mrs. Lila Dukan, if you're here, would you like to take the floor? Okay, I cannot see Minister Lila Devidukan, so I will turn towards, I will ask the question to Honorable Faustina Kale, Deputy Minister of Education.
C'est là déjà. Donc, il faut que je désactive pour moi.
For this opportunity. Maybe I can start with what type of girl, African girl we want. And I was so impressed looking at the girl who presented on this platform today. And thinking backwards, all of us who are women today was at the time also girls. And there is so important for us from early as possible to bring in activities, education, subjects, or curriculum, which will provoke the interest of a child, so that the child starts building self-confidence as early as possible. I want really to say girls who are very much innovative. Yes, the last speaker talked about how can we make learning interesting. I must say that with the technology we have today, we must not only just make easy learning for a child, but let us bring technology in so that interested as early as possible. They will never stop learning. Exposure is very important for our children. And I agree with the speaker who said, you know, if we want to develop our continent, our beloved continent, Africa, we really have to invest. Yes, I cannot deny that government must invest heavily when it comes to education, but more when it comes to girl education. Because the moment you invest and develop this girl to be innovative, this girl will do more in development of the country. I want really to agree with most of the speakers who put importance of education for a girl as a top priority. I'm speaking on behalf of Namibia when I say I'm proud that, you know, we are budgeting in education. Our budget for education is more than any other ministries, more than any alone will make a change. The human resource we entrusted upon the education of the children, especially the girls, is very important. That's why I mentioned that we must work very hard. We will just of these small ones. And it is role models girls will look upon. I can mention a lot, but I understand that the time is not with us. Let me stop here and give chance to the other ministers to respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister. Madame la ministre du Burkina Faso, avant passera Madame la ministre, vous avez la parole.
Je vous remercie. Je voudrais donc revenir sur le point, la culture traditionnelle africaine perçue comme un obstacle ou en tout cas une entrave à l'éducation des filles africaines. La question, d'abord, c'est de savoir quel type de femme, quel type de citoyens nous voulons pour nos pays. Et moi, je ne vois pas la chose de cette manière, c'est-à-dire la tradition africaine obstacle à l'éducation de la fille. Quelle éducation? Il s'agit ici d'une éducation formelle. La tradition africaine avait son mode de fonctionnement et avait mis en place ces systèmes d'éducation où tout le monde avait sa place et savait ce qu'il devrait faire. L'éducation de la fille, c'était en fonction de la fille, de la femme qu'on voulait construire. L'éducation des garçons, c'était pareil. Pendant peut-être que la fille lavait les assiettes, le garçon était derrière le troupeau. Donc, on avait un système bien fait dans lequel se développaient garçons et filles de manière complémentaire. Il se trouve qu'il y a une culture africaine. Le problème, ce n'est pas de déconstruire la culture des gens pour mettre une autre culture en place, mais c'est de voir comment ce que la royale dit dans l'aventure ambiguë, apprendre à lier le bois au bois. C'est-à-dire donc pouvoir amener les connaissances externes dans les connaissances internes et faire un lien de telle sorte que ça puisse s'impliquer. Mais il se trouve que nous prenons tout de l'extérieur et nous voulons construire sur quelque chose qui n'est pas automatiquement lié à cette chose. Donc, il faut trouver des mécanismes pour pouvoir donc faire passer cela. Et pendant longtemps, la fille a été la garante de la culture africaine. Parce que les hommes ont été les premiers au contact des Européens. Ce sont eux qui étaient au devant avec les Européens. Ce sont eux qui ont tissé toutes les relations et la femme était à l'arrière-plan et était la garante de la culture africaine. Ce qui fait qu'il a été plus apte à être incorporé dans leur système mieux que la fille qui était toujours restée à l'arrière. Et aujourd'hui, la fille africaine soit beaucoup plus réfractaire, si vous voulez, à cette éducation à laquelle elle n'a pas toujours été exposée comme l'homme, qui est d'ailleurs la courroie de transmission qui a amené cette notion d'autre culture, d'éducation dans nos systèmes. Et je voudrais dire qu'il faut tout d'abord qu'on retourne à nos valeurs. Nous avions des valeurs en Afrique, des valeurs d'équité, de complémentarité. Nous avions des valeurs, je dirais, de loyauté, de solidarité, d'intégrité. Il faut que nous retournions d'abord à ces valeurs-là, qui sont purement africaines et dans lesquelles nous nous retrouvons. Ce sont nos références. Il faudrait également que nous puissions nous asseoir avec tous les acteurs. Parce que tous les acteurs doivent être impliqués dans l'éducation des enfants. Tout est culturel. Quand on dit ne fais pas, il ne faut pas faire. Aujourd'hui, on dit ne fais pas, tu veux chercher à savoir, et si je fais? Là, justement, tu fais, tu ramasses les pots cassés. Donc, il faut que cette éducation-là, nous puissions aujourd'hui, avec ce que nous avons, parce que la culture aussi, elle est appelée à avancer, c'est ce qui se passe. Parce qu'elle change, elle évolue, etc., etc. Il faut que nous puissions prendre ce qui est bon pour ajouter. Et dans cet élément, pour atteindre les enfants, il faudrait en passer au moins par les sketchs, il faut passer par les contes, les slams, la musique, il faut passer par les dessins, par les films, pour pouvoir rétablir ces normes-là. Et je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, tantôt, il faut également des références. Il faut des exemples. Lorsque vous avez des exemples de réussite, ça facilite tout. Il faut également ramener les hommes à la table parce que, ayant été les premiers en contact avec ce système d'éducation occidentale, ils sont plus imbriqués dans la chose et acceptent mieux la chose que cette femme qui est restée à l'arrière-plan, la gardienne de notre culture. Et je crois que pour cela, il faudrait donc revoir et repenser tout notre système éducatif et aller aux réformes. Parce que nous-mêmes, il faudrait d'abord que nous-mêmes nous acceptons notre culture. Parce qu'apparemment, nous-mêmes, nous n'acceptons pas notre culture. Si nous n'acceptons pas notre culture, ben c'est normal que les enfants, les élèves, les étudiants soient aussi bloqués à un niveau donné. Donc, il faut que les valeurs de famille même reviennent. Nous n'avons plus les valeurs de famille, de communauté, de société. tout ça a foutu le camp. Et bien sûr, c'est normal que ça se répercute sur l'éducation. Et je crois qu'il est grand temps que nous fassions le retour aux sources. Parce que je ne connais pas une société qui s'est développée sans ses valeurs culturelles. Vous avez le Japon, vous avez la Chine. Le Japon ou le Chinois, il est aux États-Unis, il est dans mon village à Kouaré, il est au Sénégal, il est je ne sais où, il reste lui-même. C'est-à-dire, culturellement, il est difficile de lui enlever ce qu'il y a dans sa culture. C'est pour ça qu'il faut de la connaissance à la connaissance. Ajoutons les connaissances qu'on nous apporte à nos connaissances, mais n'essayons pas d'enlever ce que nous avons comme valeur pour construire autre chose. Et c'est ça qui fait vraiment qu'il y a des problèmes. Et je crois que si nous nous enseignons avec tous les acteurs, c'est-à-dire les enfants, les éducateurs, les enseignants, toute la société, nous allons pouvoir trouver des mécanismes qui puissent en tout cas nous aider à travers, bien sûr, des expositions, le théâtre, à travers les contes, les devinettes, etc. Nous pouvons essayer, en tout cas, de rattraper quelque chose et de faire en sorte à revenir à un équilibre. Et il faut dire que ce qui concerne le Burkina Faso aujourd'hui, nous sommes beaucoup plus touchés dans le système éducatif au regard de la situation sécuritaire et aussi de la situation sanitaire, surtout sécuritaire. Aujourd'hui, beaucoup d'enfants n'ont même plus accès à l'enseignement. Si je prends l'Est du Burkina Faso, nous avons de gros soucis. Si je prends le Sahel, le nord du Burkina Faso, nous avons de gros soucis. Beaucoup d'écoles ont été fermées, vous le savez, ce qui fait que les enfants n'ont même plus droit à l'éducation. Et bien sûr, la culture est rudement touchée aussi dans ces actes de déplacement des populations qui n'ont plus de repères. Et je crois qu'il faut effectivement que nous repensons notre système et revoir quel homme, quelle femme voulons-nous pour demain? Quelle est la femme que nous voulons pour nos sociétés? Et lorsque nous aurons trouvé une réponse, je crois que ça serait facile donc pour nous d'avancer. Et c'est vraiment des fondements, il faut revenir aux valeurs fondamentales de l'Afrique pour pouvoir éduquer nos enfants et éduquer nos enfants tels que nous les voulons pour demain. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la ministre. Surtout de mettre l'accent sur les valeurs fondamentales africaines. Merci. Je me tourne maintenant vers Madame la ministre de l'île Maurice, son Excellence, Madame Lila Devi-Dukan, pour son analyse. I do hope that her microphone has been unmuted.
We can hear you, Dr. Rita. Your mic is okay. Just unmute it and...
No, the microphone of the Minister of Mauritius, has it been unmuted?
Yeah, actually, she can unmute from her side. It's okay. She can just unmute from her side and take the floor. Dr. Rita, I think she's having challenge to
Madam
connect,
Minister,
yeah.
Madam Minister, we cannot hear you. We cannot hear you very well. And we cannot see you. Did you want to try again? Okay, I think we are having a challenge with the minister, with Madame Lila Devi-Dukan from the Minister of Mauritius. So while maybe she's looking at her camera, I just briefly want to summarize. I cannot summarize such a rich discussion, such a lively, such a passionate discussion. I will not even do justice, but I think that I just maybe want to say three maybe main points. How do we make sure that we transform our education systems? especially at a time when we are in a pandemic stage, where we are talking about STEAM, when we are talking about 5G, when we are in the AI, in the artificial intelligence world, where we are talking of increasing connectivity, digital connectivity. How do we make sure that we do not forget our African culture and heritage? How do we make sure that our values are not forgotten? Values, as the minister just said, solidarity, integrity, should not be forgotten. We should not take in all the Western values and culture. We need to come back to our African values, which are the reference points for all of us. It is in this way that we will be able to further education, especially girls' and women's education. It is very important that we do not see girls or culture as being a hindrance from girls accessing schools, from girls staying in school. And we must stop those gender stereotypes which prevent such beautiful talents from emerging in our country, in our continent. So I would like maybe to give back the floor to Minister Lila Devi Dukan, if it's possible. If not, I will go back to our youth advocate, Mrs. Afri from Uganda. She will do the outcomes very briefly. She will just give us a brief outcome of what the meeting has all been about. Afri, you have the floor.
Hello, can you hear me well?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Okay, so I compiled a short slam song with all the outcomes, to use as I was using arts, to educate. So this is just a short slam song, a freestyle, about everything we've been talking about. Hope you can hear the keys well as well. She comes from Malawi, rich my poor family. She comes from West Mali. Everybody calls her a dreamer. Zendiwa Uganda, in West Africa. I read my book, search for content to innovate for my continent. Yeah, and nothing can tear me away. I'm proud and I'm loud. School to school in Africa. Yeah. Oh, nothing can tear me away. I'm proud and I'm loud. Messiah School for Africa. I call upon the member states and our governments, addressing the nation for a necessary conversation to keep our girls in school, to make up African lady, keep girls in school, African lady, yeah, and nothing can tear me away. I'm proud and I'm loud. School for Africa, yeah. Oh, nothing can tear me away. I'm proud and I'm loud. Inside school for Africa, yeah. Nothing can tear me away. I'm proud and I'm loud. School for Africa, yeah. Nothing can tear me away. I'm proud and I'm loud. Star School for Africa, yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Afri. Thank you so much for finishing, for giving us some of the outcomes in the form of Islam. We now have come to the end of our meeting. Unfortunately, we cannot give the floor to everyone. It is very complicated with the connectivity issues, and our ministers, thank you so much for being here. And I know that your time is very limited. And I would now like to give the floor to Her Excellency Mrs. Amira El Fadil, Commissioner for Social Affairs from the Commission of the African Union, to close the meeting and to make her closing remarks. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Rita. I think
Commissioner, we cannot hear you.
sorry, I think I'm back. Hello? Hello?
Yes, Commissioner. We hear you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You hear me? Okay. Thank you. Sorry for this. Thank you very much, Dr. Rita. And let me start by congratulating my sister, Commissioner Sarah Agbor, AUC Commissioner for HRST. And I would like to thank all the ministers here present in this very important discussions. Thank you also to all the partners, the UN agencies, UNESCO, UNICEF, and all, I don't know if UN Women is also with us, but all UN agencies here present, and would like also to thank the CEO of Global Partnership for Education, the African Youth Representative, and also all science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics practitioners, and all ladies and gentlemen who are participating in this very important discussions. And I really enjoyed listening to all the speakers. Excellencies, I am honored to join this session and to deliver closing remarks on this fifth high-level dialogue on leveraging arts and culture to increase girls' and women's participation in STEM education. And for me, I consider, Dr. Rita, I consider this session as the first session and the first of the activities actually to implement the African Union theme of the year 2021 of arts, culture, and heritage, levers for building the Africa we want. I really congratulate you for this, because you started, and you started early, even before the final adoption of the theme of the year. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this discussion and other activities related to this session have paved the way to achieve the outcomes of the high-level dialogue, which were to find mechanisms on how to address gender-based stereotypes and harmful social norms and practices through arts, culture, and heritage. The target is not only to increase retention and completion rate of girls and women in education, but also to increase their understanding of scientific and mathematical logic through arts and culture. The introduction of arts education early in the school curriculum can be an added advantage and essential contributor in our quest to achieve the goal of increasing girls and women involvement in scientific and mathematical logic through arts and culture. Arts education is an area that we have included in the roadmap of the theme of the year for 2021. And we will be in this regard working, of course, with HRST department, and also will be working with African Union Development Agency, or the NIBAD. We will be working with UNICEF, UNESCO, and all other partners within the Commission and outside the Commission. All the development partners and all the stakeholders in the development of a much needed continental policy on arts education. The process of development of the continental arts education policy will be informed by the outcomes of this high-level dialogue, as well as the regional consultations on arts education, which were held since 2014. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated and worsened the existing education crisis, where very few girls are in school and very few pursue studies of their choice because of the inability to connect to learning resources while the schools were closed. We all know that even when technology is available at home or in the school, girls are less likely to have access than boys. And adding to that in Africa, the problem of online education, that in large areas in Africa, in many rural areas in our member states, there is no even connections to internet. There is no accessibility to internet. There is no electricity in some areas. There is no affordability for a lot of families because of poverty. They cannot afford to have an iPad or a mobile or a computer. So 2020 for us is an year that we should study very carefully the impact of this COVID-19 in girls' education in Africa. Generally on education, but we have to focus on education, girls' education. I believe girls are very much affected by this school lockdowns in Africa because of COVID-19, and we are still suffering from the consequences of COVID-19, and it will continue in 2021. I don't think we will be going out of this before 2022, when we have vaccines and when we have vaccines available for the target we set by Africa CDC is to immunize 60% of the African population. Excellencies, we should look into this, and I call on all of you to have more studies, more researches on the impact of COVID-19 on girls' education. One of the objectives, Excellencies, we have on our Charter for African Cultural Renaissance is to assert the dignity of African people, as well as the foundations of their culture. These objectives fit well with the initiative of leveraging arts and culture to increase girls' and women's participation in STEM education, because it is through equal dispensation of education to all that we will safeguard their dignity and will be able to achieve the African Union Agenda 2063 for the Africa we want. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the African Union Agenda 2063 has 7 aspirations. 3 of them are directly connected to this session, and they are interlinked. These aspirations 1, aspiration 5, and aspiration 6. Aspiration 1 is to have a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. One of the goals of this aspiration is to have well-educated citizens and the skills revolution underpinned by science, technology, and innovation. Aspiration 5 is to have an Africa with a strong cultural identity, common heritage, shared values, and ethics. The goal of this aspiration is to have Africa cultural renaissance, which is preeminent. Aspiration 6 is to have an Africa whose development is people-driven, relying on the potential of African people, especially its women and youth, and caring for children. One of the goals of this aspiration is to have full gender equality in all spheres of life. Excellencies, in fulfilling aspiration 6, the Department of Social Affairs contributes in keeping girls in school through working to address gender-based violence and harmful traditional practices, particularly ending of child marriage in Africa, eliminating female genital mutilation, just to mention a few. We cannot increase retention and completion rates if millions of young girls are denied the chance at education as a result of early marriage or being subjected to female genital mutilation. To address the negative social norms driving these harmful practices and recognize and amplify efforts within our countries, the Department of Social Affairs is implementing the child marriage campaign and the child marriage strategy. And also we are implementing the Salima initiative to eliminate female genital mutilation, and also now we have the Salima strategy. We are also advancing efforts through our work on migration and the prevention of online child sexual exploitation and excellencies. You know that we have Oxy as a project. We started this project very recently, maybe around a year ago or so, but it's a very successful project. I call on all of you to be partners to us with the Division of Social Welfare, and also with We Protect Global Alliance as a main partner, but all of our member states are requested to join fully in this project. All these project excellencies are geared towards keeping the girls in school. But I would like here to stop and mention that, yes, we have these all negative practices, traditional harmful practices. We need to save our girls from these harmful practices. But excellencies also, when we implemented a very positive project called the African Girls Can Code, it's one of the projects directed to fill the gap between the girls and boys in IT education. This project, it shows us that our girls are extremely intelligent, willing, and ready if we give them the chance. The results of this project, which is still going on in collaboration with UN Women, is really amazing. So filling the gaps between girls and boys in the IT education is also one of the targets, and I think STEM can play a very big role in this. My second point also, excellencies, is when we look to our arts, culture, and heritage in Africa, when we look into our traditions and norms, let me agree with the Minister of Burkina Faso and some of the previous speakers. We have a lot of positive norms, values in Africa. We should look into the whole picture. We should not only focus on the negatives. We need to work, all of us, to overcome the challenges. We need to work, all of us, to make sure that the traditional harmful practices will be totally eliminated. But also, excellencies, we need to look into the positive aspects we have in our culture in Africa, because our culture is our identity. We have positive norms. We have values that we can give to others to learn from. So what I would like to call for here is not to concentrate only on the negatives, but to have a balance policies, a balanced strategies to make sure that we will bring out strongly the positive aspects of our heritage in Africa, and to teach it to our girls and boys in Africa, because we want them to have their African identity. So I would like very much for us to be very strong on this, to be very strong on bringing out our rich, positive culture aspects, and to be taught to our girls and boys. Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen, in my conclusion, allow me to conclude by saying that on behalf of the African Union Department of Social Affairs, we are always working very closely with HRC department, and I enjoyed very much working with my sister, Professor Sarah, and many times also in collaboration with UNICEF, Dr. Eddie. I enjoyed very much all the activities we jointly implemented, and I like very much the couch talk and all what we managed to do in spite even of this COVID-19. I would like to congratulate you, Professor Sarah. I would like to congratulate Dr. Rita and all the organizers, all the panelists, and all the participants that have contributed throughout this discussion, those who gave their thoughts and ideas, those who spoke passionately, and I listened also there's a very passionate remarks from Doris. I thank her very much on that. All of us, we need to be very passionate about where we are, what we are doing, and by being passionate about our work, I believe we will be more successful. Excellencies, I wish to reiterate that the African Union Commission, Department of Social Affairs, is always available and ready to receive the outcomes of this session on the theme of the year, Arts, Culture, and Heritage, levers for building the Africa we want, especially since it will contribute to our continental policy on arts education. And let me end by the beautiful words said by our youngest speaker and the youngest singer from Uganda, when she said, "I'm proud and loud." I say, I would like to say to her, "I'm proud and loud as an African girl. I'm very proud. I'm very loud. I'm an old woman, but today I will be a young girl to say I'm proud and loud as an African girl." Thank you very much, Rita, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And with the last words now, we shall say goodbye to the 5th high-level dialogue. Thank you very much to all your excellencies, to all ministers, especially Commissioner Sarah, Commissioner Amira, to all your ministers who have been here. We are very sad that some ministers were not able to take the floor due to connectivity issues. We are very sorry for this. And we can see it is so much better to be face-to-face, but I mean, we do not have the choice. So thank you very much. Bye-bye, and have a great day, a great evening, or great morning. Thank you again. Bye-bye.